You stand in the dark. The candle is lit. You hold a single, steady breath. You don't know what you're doing, but something in your nervous system does. This exact sequence appears in a manuscript written in late antiquity, the Greek Magical Papyri. For centuries, we've been told these ancient magicians were superstitious fools. We picture them waving wands. We imagine them shouting at the sky. We were wrong. What if magic was never about changing the external world? What if it was the world's first systematic science of human consciousness? The ancients didn't call it trance. They called it henosis, union. Iamblichus, a Syrian philosopher from the 3rd century, wrote the definitive manual on this. His masterpiece, De Mysteries, he argued that human intellect alone could never grasp the hidden architecture of reality. The mind is too noisy. The ego is too rigid. To touch the divine, the operator had to bypass the conscious mind entirely. How did they actually do it? They didn't pray. They hacked their sensory inputs. They used synthemata, tokens, symbols, specific sensory triggers designed to overload the brain. Imagine the scene: a subterranean chamber in Alexandria. The practitioner hasn't eaten in 3 days. Fasting wasn't about moral purity. It was about neurochemistry. A starved brain enters a state of hyperarousal. The barrier between waking and dreaming wears thin. The operator begins to chant. Not a hymn. They chant voces magicae, barbaric, meaningless strings of vowels. A-E-E-I-O-U omega. Why meaningless? Because language engages the rational brain. Nonsense syllables short-circuit the language centers. They force the prefrontal cortex to shut down. The chanting becomes a rhythm. The rhythm becomes a physical vibration in the skull. Centuries later, the Renaissance scholar Marsilio Ficino rediscovered this exact mechanism. In his text, 3 Books on Life, Ficino didn't prescribe spells. He prescribed planetary music. He understood that specific auditory frequencies, paired with the burning of specific resins, altered the operator's physiological state. He instructed his students to burn frankincense. Today, modern science tells us why. Frankincense contains incensyl acetate. It is a powerful psychoactive compound. It lowers anxiety. It induces a depressive-like behavior in the ego, cracking the mind wide open. Ficino wasn't a wizard. He was a biohacker. Jump forward to the early 20th century. The infamous occultist Aleister Crowley publishes Liber ABA. Crowley stripped away the Gothic romance of Victorian magic. He looked east. He synthesized the 8 limbs of Patanjali's yoga with Western Hermeticism. He insisted that before you can summon a single spirit, you must master asana, posture. You sit perfectly still. You endure the physical pain of stillness. Then you master pranayama, breath control. You don't breathe to relax. You breathe to hyperoxygenate the blood. You breathe to trigger a controlled stress response. The magician is deliberately inducing a state of hypnagogia, the razor-thin borderland between waking and sleep. This was the secret system beneath it all. From the Egyptian sands to Victorian London, they were all doing the same thing. They were overloading the senses to collapse the boundaries of the self. When the ego collapses, what is left? Modern neuroscience calls it hypofrontality. The brain's default mode network goes quiet. The barrier separating the conscious and subconscious mind dissolves. The operator hallucinates, or rather, the operator finally perceives what the waking mind usually filters out to keep you sane. They didn't summon demons from a literal pit. They summoned the repressed, untamed archetypes of their own deep psychology. They dragged them into the light of the conscious mind to interrogate them. Austin Osman Spare, the grandfather of chaos magic, understood this better than anyone. He called his method the death posture. Spare wouldn't bother with robes or wands. He would stare into a mirror until his own face became alien. He would exhaust himself physically until he collapsed. In that split second of total void, when the mind was completely empty, he fired his intent directly into the subconscious. He proved that you don't need ancient temples. You don't need grimoires. You just need a nervous system. Magic was never about the supernatural. It was always about the self. Think about your own life. Think about the moments you lose yourself. The runner's high, the deep, timeless immersion in music, the strange, shifting geometry you see right before you fall asleep. Your ancestors knew how to weaponize this state. They mapped it. They built an entire occult technology around it. They knew that the waking conscious mind is a prison. And they built the keys to break out. So you stand in the dark. The candle is lit. You hold a single, steady breath. And you finally let it go. You don't know what you're waiting for, because you are already there.